Hello, my name is Kate Patrick. I'm a Master Gardener at Rutherford County Extension and former past president of the Middle Tennessee Daylillies Society. Today, I would like to invite you to find out a little bit more about daylilies and recognize that they're not your grandmama's daylilies. When we think of daylilies, several common images spring to mind, and the first one of those is the ditch lily, which is often seen growing by the roadside on old homesteads. This plant was actually imported from China centuries ago and is an extremely vigorous stoloniferous grower. Stoloniferous means runners that are sort of underground. So this is a familiar sight on most Tennessee country roads. You'll see them growing in ditches around old homesteads and just generally colonizing damp places. The most common daylily or ditch lily is called Hemerocallis fulva or tawny daylily. There are also other species such as Citrina, Altissima, and Rosea. They all come from the Orient, China, Japan, and Korea. What we call the lemon daylily is probably either Citrina or Altissima. From these species and their interbreeding, over 80,000 different registered daylilies have been hybridized. We now have flowers in many forms, sizes, and colors. So an anatomy lesson concerning the daylily. Daylilies are not liliums or regular lilies, the kind that you might see in the supermarket as a cut flower or might receive on Mother's Day or Valentine's Day. Those lilies grow from a bulb. Daylilies grow from a central crown with tuberous roots. They're what we call monocots, which is related to corn. They have grassy foliage, and they send up central flowering scapes from each fan or division. So here you can see that down by the roots, there's what they call the crown of the plant, which is where the green stuff comes from. Daylilies will send up foliage, and then they'll send up what we call a scape, which is where the flowers are. But why are they called daylilies? That's because each bloom only lasts a day. It opens in the morning generally and closes at sundown, although a few are backwards and open at sundown, closing in the morning. But each flowering scape contains multiple buds, so the next day another bloom opens. This enables the plant to bloom over an extended period of time and to produce multiple blooms on each plant. The scientific name is Hemerocallis, which is from the Greek and means beauty for a day. Currently, daylilies are being bred for increased bud count and branching to increase the number of blooms per scape. So here you see two examples of some lovely modern daylilies, and you can see that they have plenty of buds and that there's adequate branching on the scapes. So each of these plants is going to bloom over a period of about 2 weeks. Here you can appreciate the multiple buds on this plant up close. This is a tall, thin plant. Doesn't have very many buds, but it has a lot more branching. So the effect is going to be the same. It's going to bloom over about a 2-week period. This plant has some lovely buds at the top. Some are already bloomed out, and some are yet to come. So the forms of daylilies vary from round and ruffled, toothy, spidery, doubles, and what's called the unusual form. In the daylily world, there's something for every taste. So below on the left, you see what's called an unusual form, which you have to admit looks unusual. And these plants generally have long curling petals or just larger than normal petals in different shapes. On the right, you see an example of a double daylily. This is what they call a bitone. If you notice that the three petals are a darker red, while the what they call the sepals are lighter in color. And so it gives you sort of a bitone effect. This is an unusual form. If you'll notice that the bottom petals look pinched, that's called crispate. So it's an unusual crispate form, and it's called Dances with Giraffes. It's very tall. Purple or blue daylilies are much sought after, especially blue. This is an example of a blue throat in a daylily, or a blue pattern in a daylily. It's still not perfectly blue, and the perfect blue daylily has yet to be bred. Another example of a different form of daylily. This one is larger and flatter with a lovely green throat, greenish yellow throat. You can see that there's quite a few buds on each branch, and that the scapes themselves have about 4 branches on them on average. This daylily has what we call an eye, which is a darker area of pigment around the throat, and is very attractive. This daylily has a wide green throat and a fairly large eye that's almost what we call a pattern daylily. Sometimes those eyes can get very elaborate in terms of the shading and the different patterns that you see within them. It also has a little ruffled edge with a little purple around the edge as well. So when do you plant daylilies? The best time to plant daylilies is spring or fall. Here in Zone 7, mid-April through mid-June and September are the best, as long as you avoid extremes of temperature. I have planted daylilies in most all kinds of weather. They're more liable to rot if you plant them in the heat of the summer, so you need to be careful. Space them about 18 to 24 inches apart. Amend the soil with a lot of organic matter like compost before planting. So how do you plant a daylily? First of all, you don't want to dig a 50-cent hole for a $5 plant. So you want to dig the hole larger than the root mass and loosen the soil around the edges of the hole. Amend it, make a mound in the center of the hole like a volcano, and set the plant in place with the roots spread on all sides of the mound. Then you pack the soil in on top of that. New plants should be planted about as deep as they grew originally. The original depth can be determined easily by the band of white at the base of the foliage, which indicates the part of the plant that was underground. Don't set that crown, or the point where the foliage and roots join, more than an inch below the surface of the soil. Work the soil around and in between the roots as you cover the plant. Firm the soil and water well. Make sure there are no air pockets. This can cause the plant to grow poorly. When all the water has soaked in, finish filling in the soil and leave a slight depression or dish around the plant. And mulch. So some resources, if you're interested in daylilies, the American Hemerocallis Society, which also goes by the American Daylily Society, is online. Middle Tennessee Daylily Society has a Facebook group, a website, and when COVID is over, we'll have some more meetings. A general hub with a lot of information about people who grow and raise daylilies is Charlotte's Daylily Diary, and that's listed on, below. It's an internet website. So where to get daylilies? Try and purchase daylilies from the surrounding area because they'll be more acclimated to our weather. If you purchase daylilies from Florida or California, they may have difficulty adjusting because they have not been exposed to the cold and damp that we experience here. Local garden centers like Martin's have plenty. Local club sales sponsored by the Middle Tennessee Daylily Society. We generally have a big sale at the Nashville Lawn and Garden Show in the spring. So if we have a lawn and garden show in 2021, we'll be there. You can mail order daylilies, and some good places to order that I've been pleased with are Oak Hill Daylilies, Shady Rest Daylilies, Blue Ridge Daylily Nursery, and Oaks Daylilies. And other daylily gardeners are often willing to share. So let's look at some eye candy. We're just going to walk through the garden and take a look at some different daylilies. This one is called James River Rose, and you can see that it has a really good branching, adequate buds, and that it goes well with other plants in the garden. The yellow in the center catches the yellow of the daisies behind it. This is called Big Bird's Friend and is over 5 feet tall. It has lots of buds and branching. It's a bright, cheerful yellow, and it makes quite a statement in the garden. This is Point of View. It's quite a tall red daylily, and it's the plant that seduced me into wanting more daylilies. It's a huge bloom and can be seen from quite a ways. Daylilies don't have to be bright and in your face. They can be pastel and pretty. This one goes well with the Achillea that is around it. It's called Butter Pecan, I believe, or maybe Mango Madness. Yellow daylilies are always good. This one has a ruffled edge. I think it's called Rubber Ducky. Has a ruffled edge and a slightly green throat. This is a beautiful pinkish coral colored daylily. It has a faint darker pink eye, plenty of branching and adequate buds. This is a gorgeous purple daylily. I don't remember what the name of it is, but it has ruffles along the edge, a beautiful green throat, and has good bud and branch count. This daylily can become quite tall at about 3 or 4 feet. It's called Eminent Domain. It mixes well with other plants in the border and is a good grower. This is called Red Volunteer and is a classic red daylily available or bred by Oaks Daylilies here in Tennessee, and just looks great in a big mass. This daylily is called Mean Green because it has a really green throat and sort of pale peachy pink petals. It grows in a massive clump in my garden. This daylily is almost a spider, but not quite because the petals aren't quite thin enough. So we would classify this as an unusual form. But it has plenty of curls and is very graceful. You can see that there's lots and lots of buds, so there's lots more bloom on this one to come. Some daylilies are even velvety or corrugated, almost a corduroy-like effect, with deep grooves in the petals where the veins are, and a sort of a plush-looking texture to the petals. Here's another purple daylily, which is a good classic. Has a little white edge to it and makes lots of buds and lots of blooms. By the way, purple looks great when it's backed with orange. Okay, so we've looked at some plants up close, so let's see how they fit into the landscape. As you can see here in this image, they go well with lots of other perennials. These daylilies are surrounded by bee balm, phlox, cannas, verbena, and many other perennials. This is Hyperion, which is a really old yellow daylily, but is an absolute classic. It blooms around the 4th of July and puts it on a great display. If you have a big swath of this stuff, it just looks marvelous. This pink daylily is going well with the pink bee balm, the phlox, and that's a spirea in the background. These daylily beds were a little overcome by sunflowers planted by the birds, but they managed well. You can see that they'll do well in a raised bed or right in the ground. It's another shot of the same garden. They're mostly in the full sun, but the shade is beginning to encroach in this garden a little bit. This is a beautiful arrangement of particular daylilies growing next to a fringe tree and behind some grasses. These daylilies are spilling over with plenty of daisies intermixed with them and cone flowers. This is a daylily farm in Kentucky called Daylily World. They're online and you can order from them. They have some beautiful cultivars. Garden ornaments can really set your daylilies off, especially things that are blue and reflective like this. A daylily bed can be just something as simple as a bed up against an old barn. These beds have paths between them and plenty of other flowers to keep your interest. This bed is in the front of a house, looks gorgeous from the street, and is surrounded by clematis, castor beans, true lilies, and just looks glorious. Here's another shot of Hyperion, the old yellow daylily, just strutting its stuff. Daylilies can look good in formal gardens too. This is a historic house in Franklin, Kentucky. It has very formal gardens, but they've just been planted up with lots and lots of daylilies and other perennials, and the effect is just magical. Here's another side of the house. This bed is very structured, but still looks great with lots of daylilies in it. This is the same garden. This is a garden in Minnesota, and you can see that daylilies do well in really cold climates. They're a valuable addition to any garden. They're disease resistant, although sometimes affected by fungal leaf infections or bacterial crown rot during our hot summers. The worst disease is probably what they call daylily rust, which makes the plants very unsightly, but it does not generally affect them in terms of growth and blooming, and usually is evident in the late summer to early fall as the nighttime temperatures begin to drop. Proper cultivation, spacing, and mulching will help reduce these problems. Daylilies are really affordable. You can get really nice plants for $10 to $20. Even cheaper if you come to the daylily sale. They're about $7 or $8 a pot. Although new cultivars can command a price well over $100 for 2 individual fans. Just be aware that daylilies can be addictive and result in significant loss of garden space for other plants once you get hooked. Daylily lovers are great enablers and will happily help you feed your addiction by sharing plants from their gardens and trading for other varieties or cultivars. Thank you for watching.